What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets'd podcast. We've got a pitching coach, apparently. Justin Willard is supposedly the new pitching coach. It's not official yet, but we've been seeing all the reports, all the rumors, all signs are leading to Justin Willard being the new guy in charge at the major league level. Before we get going into it more, make sure you are subscribed to the Mets'd podcast. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. James, I know you're excited to talk about this one. Could this be the new Hefner jersey for you? Are we going to see a Willard pitching coach jersey in the Shiano future?
I feel like the Hefner thing was a once in a lifetime just because of the way the podcast was growing at the time and how much we both just liked Hefner even before we started this show. But this is, by all accounts, a very exciting, again, potential apparent hire by the Mets. All the signs are pointing that way. Will Salmon reported emerge as a front runner, very close to official. It all seems like this will happen. This kind of, we know the nature of these hires sometimes. You got to wait a little bit.
And by the time you guys are listening to this, it very well could be official.
Totally. You probably still got to cross some T's, dot some I's, do all that stuff. But this is definitely something that's just great for the Mets pitching development, player development going forward. We talked about the fact that it made sense to move on from Jeremy Hefner after this offseason, but you did not want an overhaul. You did not want to change a lot of the things that was making this organization very successful pitching development, something that we'd become accustomed to for the last few years. And Willard is someone who kind of fits in the mold. He worked with Hefner a long time ago, worked at least under him in the same organization as him in Minnesota way back when, but also definitely some connections with Eric Yeagers coming from the Red Sox, working with Craig Bledsoe and Kyle Boddy. There seems to be a great continuation, consistency here with this hire while getting a new prominent, strong voice in the room.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like the stuff is too far off of what Hefner's philosophy and stuff was as well, which is you got to have nasty stuff. We want stuff. We want stuff. We want stuff. How do we make this stuff better? The biggest difference here, and I don't think this is anti-Hefner, it's just that Willard is very, very simple in that you got to have good stuff and you got to throw it in the zone, because if you don't throw strikes, we can't get outs. And if we're not getting outs, we're not doing our job as a pitcher. And we saw that all season with the Mets. They had a massive issue. Every single one of them throwing strikes consistently.
And it's the confidence to throw your strikes in the zone. But you have that confidence by having the nasty stuff to throw in the zone. So I have a couple great quotes here from an Ian Brown piece in MLB.com where he interviewed Willard. This was before last season, January of 2024. Willard said he has a really simple approach when it comes to his pitching philosophy. Throw nasty stuff in the zone. You can have nasty stuff, but it's not going to be maximized if you're not in the zone. And then vice versa. If you're in the zone and you're getting hit, we've got to develop better stuff. I think most importantly, defining that for players and defining what the scoreboard is.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because it is sometimes that simple. Throw really good pitches in the zone, and if they're getting hit, the pitches need to be better. I know that sounds stupid, and to people maybe listening to this or watching this, they might be like, yeah, no shit. Like, this is the guy we hired. What a novel idea. But this is the conversation we have with you guys where when we talk about these free agents, we talk about these pitchers that we are or are not interested in. A lot of the time, it does come down to the stuff that they have.
Totally. And it's about and of course, this was going to happen, any modern hire that we had, but this is a process guy. You know, you guys know how much we love process on this podcast. But I went and found an interview that Kevin Willard did, again, about a year ago now, with something called the Sox Prospect.
Did you call him Kevin Willard?
I keep calling him Kevin Willard because
that's the Seton Hall coach, right?
Well, Maryland now, and he went somewhere else. People hate him. Justin Willard. This is gonna be a thing for me all my whole as long as he's here now. But Sox Prospect Pod. These guys were really sharp. It only had like 300 views. This podcast, only about 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. If you guys like Red Sox podcasts, I'm happy to shout them out right now. But Willard he was spitting fire on this whole thing. It's like a 45-minute interview, which is even cool. This guy with a prominent role with the Red Sox was doing an interview like this with small-scale podcasts. Could bode well for guys like us over the next few weeks, but just some amazing quotes he had on this. He talked a lot about pitchers, especially pitchers the team would draft or sign in terms of poker hands. He was like, no matter what, you have a really good chance to win, but you kind of have to see how everything falls to determine what's going to happen with this guy. He called Paul Skeens pocket rockets. He's like, you get a guy like Skeens in your organization, like, you know, he's going to succeed. Probably, at least he has a better chance than a lot of other guys to succeed. You still have to get to the end of it. But then he said most of the guys that you're getting and developing the drafts are like 2-7 offsuits. And it's really about you being able to play the hand, figuring out what everybody else has, and seeing what you can get out of these guys. And just there was tons of heat in this thing. I listened to the whole thing on 2x speed. I was like, wow, over this morning, this is awesome.
I do like that. I like the idea of, Skeens is the pocket aces. You should win. But again, you're not guaranteed because 7-2, you get a couple 7-2s on the board with that hand. All of a sudden you're cooking. So it's like, that's an interesting way to put it. I like the way that this guy's even thinking just on the base level.
Oh, there's even so many more good ones, great ones. He talks about big rocks in terms of player development. You have to keep
Big
moving.
rocks,
You got to keep moving big rocks. Like big rocks is like fitness, but then other rocks inside those big rocks is like your nutrition and your
hmm.
sleep, and then your biomechanical stuff,
Which
which I
also
thought
that
was really
seems
cool.
super in line too with what the Mets' new hires have been so far. Like Snickers, very very biomechanical, making sure
Yeah,
all the things are
modern.
working right.
He talked about also he kept using the phrase over the plate success, which again I think goes off that ethos that we shared with you guys a few minutes ago, where it's like you want to be a strike throwing team. Kept saying over the plate success, over the plate success. Kept talking about velocity, adding velocity onto guys. But then he also goes and like kind of pulls it out and talks about using models, just using advanced data in decision making process. But he says something interesting where he says predictive models are necessary in organizations, but they can never be everything. And he specifically in this interview he did in the Small Scale Red Sox podcast a year ago, brought up why would the Rays trade a guy like Joe Ryan for something that seemed like not so much at the time. And it's because at the time, what the Rays were trying to model with their fastball models, how they were approaching and perceiving stuff, they just never thought that while Ryan's fastball was bad, but it was so weird. They didn't know if it would actually translate to get major league hitters out. So they thought
Mm.
they were able to sell high on a guy with minor league helium. But then I don't know if this is exactly the pushover when Willard was with the Twins. We said they got him because they figured it'd at least be good enough, but maybe just not three times through the order. And then they kept kind of helping him work on it. They kept helping him build velocity, and that's how Joe Ryan has become Joe Ryan. And this is another great quote you're going to love. We're not playing the ERA game. We're here to predict future outcomes.
There it is, anti-ERA podcast.
And then people talked about, I remember, because people talked about Trey Savage during this last run about like, wow, why did he even get promoted from Double A when he had like a 4.6 ERA? And they don't even give a shit about that. I don't
No.
think these teams are ever looking at a minor leaguer's ERA. They just want to see that stuff number. They want to see what these pitchers look like and how they're interacting with each other and how hitters are approaching them to see what this is. So again, just being more modern.
And again, the reason we talk about not caring about, especially minor league ERA, one, a lot of times guys are working on stuff. They're making changes. They're constantly tinkering down there to try and make sure that they can get to where these organizations want them. And then two, you have parks like the one in Asheville that have like 270 down the line in right field. You have Coney Island where it's impossible for left-handed hitters to hit home runs. These parks are not built to be standardized to what ERA is around baseball, where it's like, oh, the parks are somewhat ish
Kind of.
close to each other in baseball. Like they're all within the
Relatively.
same group. Minor leagues, it's the wild, wild west out there.
And then also, you're facing a minor league team in Double A. This might be a team chock full of future major leaguers, but you might be facing another one that has no one that's ever going to get past that level.
Like if you're facing the Braves minor league system, you're like, there's 3 good prospects in that entire farm system right now. Like that, playing their Double A team, they might have 28-year-olds on that team.
And then a few years ago, when the Mets had to face the Norfolk Tides, when the Orioles had all the prospects coming through, and it was like 7 future major leaguers in that lineup. And then you don't have that many teams in these leagues, so you're playing the same like 6, 7 teams over and over again.
Or the AAA Red Sox this year, Worcester,
year.
where it's like Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell and guys like that.
Yeah, and Brandon Sproat getting his ERA is about 6, but you're like, yeah, a lot of those are just Roman Anthony home runs, and he's one of the 25 best hitters in Major League Baseball already. But it's very interesting. I love hearing him talk like this. And there's more philosophy. Maybe we could talk more about just Justin Willard's history now.
Yeah, because he does have a fascinating history.
Crazy. We always love, especially when we get the nitty gritty on this show. When you Mets hire new guys, going straight to LinkedIn.
Yes.
It's such a funny little thing to do. But going to Justin Willard's LinkedIn, first of all, he worked again under Jeremy Hefner to a degree in Minnesota. Hefner was the assistant pitching coach for the 2019 season with the Twins. After he was, I think, on field or pitching game coordinator, something in a lower scale role, or special assistant, special advisor, something like that. And then Willard became the team's minor league pitching coach in 2018 through 2020. So that was when they had the overlap with Hefner, and then promoted to the pitching coordinator, minor league pitching coordinator for the Twins in 2021. But then, right when Craig Breslow got hired to be the top executive in Boston for Chaim Bloom, this was the first guy he brought in. I didn't know this until doing this research, but Breslow was the Cubs director of pitching before getting this job with the Red Sox.
Did not know that either. I just thought he went from being a player to executive.
No, it was director of pitching. But with being director of pitching, he also worked closely with Epstein and was considered, I think, the special assistant.
Theo Epstein.
The special assistant to the lead executive too. So he kind of bridged those two roles together, and that's how he got this top executive job in Boston. And then Kyle Boddy, who we always talk about, the architect of Driveline, he came there the year after as a special advisor to the Red Sox. He's been there since, and we know he's very connected with Eric Yeagers because those two together were both instrumental to the development of Driveline 6 or 7 years ago, and it really got going. So there's a lot of things interwoven webs in this thing. I think is really cool for the Mets to have now.
Hey, if you want to take care of yourself, your body, and everything that goes into health, fitness, and nutrition, Superpower provides Kratz what I would call the pro experience for the everyday person.
100%. Super easy. You get your lab test results back and you can streamline exactly what you're deficient in. You can say, okay, this is what the results told me. I'm going to go ahead and maybe look for that in a supplement, which they provide. I'm going to go ahead and look at that in my daily workouts, which they give so many different ideas of how to make sure your deficiencies become some of your superpowers.
Superpower used to cost $499. Head to superpower.com right now to learn more and lock in the special $199 price while it lasts. After you sign up, they'll ask you how you heard about them and make sure you mention FT. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower.
To talk about the Red Sox pitching development too, while he was there, a lot of guys, I don't want to say popping up out of nowhere, but the Red Sox pitching development has been a lot better over the last few years than it previously was. Even guys like Connolly Early getting to the major league level, and Peyton Tolley as quickly as he did. I know he was a higher pick, Peyton Tolley, but these guys being able to have the success in the minors, seeing the things that we talked about with you, Savage, and even Tong, and guys that have gone through the minors quickly, you get to these pitch shapes, you get to these numbers, we can see what these pitches look like. We know they're going to be majorly capable pitchers. And it seems like Justin Willard has the ability to, one, get those guys to get to those kind of, I hate like making it sound like, that there's numbers. And if you do this, you're good, because obviously there's more to it.
And mentals.
Yes, and mentals. But we know that if pitches can look like this, if we can get this guy's fastball to this spot, if we can get his sweeper, his slider to move as much as this, we know that we can build major league pitching again, seemingly out of nothing. And now at the major league level, when we have all these young guys coming in who have been using all this data with Eric Yeagers in the minors and the guys there, it's nice that we're going to have someone who can help translate that even more to them. Not that Hefner couldn't, but it seems like Willard is also very good at this.
And there's also the idea, and Willard talked about this a lot again in that same podcast I listened to with the two Red Sox guys, about understanding players' archetypes and how to build pitches and repertoires that fit best for them. Because not every guy has the Peyton Tolley fastball, where he is a massive dude with huge extension and a low vertical release point. He talked about that specifically. He said, we decided to go in on Peyton Tolley because we knew with that fastball, the extension, the release height, the approach angle, the velocity, it would get hitters out for a long time. He basically said that fastball, you just know, based on that college pitch data, is a foundational piece. But then he said very differently with Connolly Early, and these two guys are going to probably become the guys who are going to flank Garrett Crochet the most in Boston these next few years. Where him, it was a lot of a mental thing, and it was about the ability to spin things, and knowing that Connolly Early's fastballs would be good but not great. It's about developing the other things, because just because the fastball's not great doesn't mean you can't use it. But then moving it around, figuring other things out. I talked a lot about Richard Fitz too, and Hunter Dobbins.
Dickie Fitz. You guys have very different fastballs in there. I talked about is it David Sandler or Nick Sandler, the one they traded with the Royals? It's a really good question. It's one of them.
One of those two Sandlers. We just talked about again how all of these guys are very different in what they have. And he also talked about the fact that why he left the Twins to join the Red Sox as a director of pitching. He said one of the biggest things was that he wanted to work more closely with the major league staff. But with the Twins, it was development role. And the Twins are actually, in that time, we're developing tons of great pitchers.
So many good pitchers.
Like pitchers that we are even still putting around to this day. The Twins kind of got brain drained, though, because it doesn't seem like they wanted to pay their top talent money. But he said he came to Boston from Minnesota because he wanted to impact all levels. And he spent a lot of time working with Andrew Bailey, who's lauded as one of the better pitcher coaches in the league with the Red Sox. And said together they would break down video, data, biomechanical, pitch movement to boost pitchers' results. And it just seems like this is a maniac, honest to God.
Yeah, I mean, baseball rats, right? We talk about how we want baseball rats all the time, being around these guys, helping out. We had Jeremy Hefner, we thought was a little bit of a rat, a guy who was just a pitcher that stuck around forever, loves pitching. Even Antoine Richardson, think about it. He was a rat in terms of like the first base coach. Good rat. He was a baseball rat where loves baseball around it. And that seems like the guys that they're trying to get around Mendoza on this major league staff is not these flashy guys who had major league careers and maybe were great third basemen and didn't make all-star teams, but had great seasons out in Oakland. They want guys who were more grinding, working hard, obsessed with baseball. They maybe didn't have the ability, but they have the coachability, they have the understanding to make everybody else around them better.
Totally. I think Willard kind of goes into that lot because he was a pitcher at Concord University. And then right after that, because I think he knew the playing career was over, he went to Radford to get his MBA.
Whoa, Radford. What the hell? Why do we talk about Radford so much?
And right when he went there to do it, He was a graduate baseball coach first the 1 year at Concord, and then bang, he went right in there, assistant baseball coach, recruiting coordinator. So he was in there right the second the baseball playing stopped. It went right into coaching. I think there also is something. So I want to talk a little bit more about Willard and also go through some of the Red Sox guys last year just to give like a sense of what I think he is. But it seems like we are seeking this kind of insulation from a lot of the coaches that we're hiring on this staff, possibly from, we don't know if Carlos Mendoza is going to be his manager in 2 years.
Yeah.
You saw that Mets hired Troy Snicker, really close ties to Jeff Albert. Now the Mets are hiring Justin Willard. Seems like there are at least close circumstantial ties to Eric Yeagers. It seems like we're trying to build these player development, organizational infrastructures that are a bit not disconnected, but maybe independent a bit of what's going to be happening day by day with Mendoza in the major league dugout.
Now, technically, or I shouldn't say technically, philosophically speaking, I think that makes sense because
I think it definitely does.
The manager should really just be managing, and everything else around him should be able to exist with or without him. Obviously, you hope that there's synergy and that the manager fits in and takes in all of this that's going around him. But as weird as it sounds, you should be building an organization where the manager can be swapped in and out if he's not a good fit.
And I think that is what the Mets are trying to build because there's so much more that happens in this organization. And we talked about this a lot this year. And what was a disgustingly miserable year for the Mets major league team, it was one of the best minor league seasons the Mets organization has literally ever had. So it's about finding success there. And if you do want to build a true sustainable winner that can win repeatedly over and over again, it does start with the organizational practices. And I do think now with these two hires together, Willard and Snicker working, again, seemingly under guys that we like a lot, even though Eric Yeagers is like 4 or 5 years younger than Justin Willard, which is
it's crazy.
It's crazy. He's like our age and we're doing this podcast and he's been running Mets pitching development for a few years now. It's just crazy. But there's a lot of interconnectivity between these guys who are going to seemingly take this entire organization forward, whether or not it is including Carlos Mendoza.
Tell me some things that he made changes with the Red Sox, because that's probably what the people really want to hear the most right now. We got all the background. What are some of the actual fundamental changes we saw with the Red Sox?
I think the big one would be Garrett Crochet. I think Garrett Crochet kind of, because he was so good last year and so good this year, I guess everyone's like, Garrett Crochet, finished product, nothing really happened there, right? But he made major changes to who he was as a pitcher this season. And I think you should if you're a guy like Crochet, because one, and this was an added challenge, I couldn't really tell going through this Willard stuff, the Red Sox stuff, if they're playing a lot for their ballpark or if they're just playing for strength in general. Because one of the most difficult places to pitch in baseball, we talk about that a lot, where Citi Field's not. But when Crochet was the White Sox, he did not have a sinker. It was the fastball and the cutter, and he kind of just got by being a moose, overpowering guys with those two pitches, getting in kitchens, never really being afraid to challenge. So with that, and again, this is part of Willard's ethos, challenging guys, nasty stuff in the strike zone. He developed the sinker this year. The sinker became Crochet's most thrown pitch against left-handed batters, and it had his highest run value overall, and it had one of his highest in-zone rates. And Garrett Crochet this year, all of the fastballs that he threw had a higher zone rate than the major league average. And really the only pitch he was consistently not throwing in the zone, but still in line with his pitches average, was the sweeper, the swing and miss pitch. So I do think that giving a guy like Crochet, who seems like he has everything, a new thing that became his most useful weapon, especially inside the strike zone, I like seeing that from a player development standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, taking anybody and making them better. Like you said, people thought Crochet was kind of a finished product. You know what he is. Being able to boost his game even more is huge because while the Mets have some good pitchers, Nolan McLean, love him, need to get better, still want to get better, want all these guys to get better. We even saw it with McLean. It's not like he's a Cy Young Award winner. There can still be improvements from everybody on this staff.
Willard also mentioned the fact that he doesn't like pitchers to ever fully shut down from throwing. In the offseason, you scale back, but you never stop throwing. Once you stop throwing, he said. And that was also something we saw with Crochet the year before with the White Sox, which was cool. And Crochet this year, he took a little bit off himself velocity-wise, took down his arm angle a little bit, seemingly just take some pressure off that part of his body, but then also was able to steamroll to a career high in innings and seemingly do it in a very, very sustainable
200
way.
plus, right, this year?
Yeah. And then his last start of the year against the Yankees, he was the best he'd been all season, throwing it the hardest he'd thrown all season. So there's definitely this added importance on your own, what's the word we're looking for here? I don't know, your own physical fitness, your own endurance. But the endurance isn't exactly start-to-start thing. It's like a 12-month thing, which I think is very cool.
Brian Bayo also took big steps forward this year. He went from being a pitcher that was like frustrating to watch, where you're like, the stuff feels good. Seems
great.
like you should be better than you are, but you can't ever get through the fourth inning. And then this year, while he was still, I don't think has reached his potential, he was a hell of a lot better than we thought he was going to be.
quite good. I think this was another thing where, again, you can feel this coming through. Be nasty in the zone. Bayo kind of struggled in the zone a little bit.
A
did
lot. He
walk
was
a
a,
good-
he was
good
a
few
nibbler.
guys. And that was the thing. So this year, mid-season, it was about June. All of a sudden, Brian Bayo had a cutter going on. And then August, September, that was his most consistent pitch in the strike zone. So I think seeing that happen again in season is cool too. And also, we've talked a lot about the Mets pitching development the last few years, focusing on this fastball triangle, having a four-seamer, two-seamer, sinker, and a cutter. That was Crochet completing the fastball triangle, getting that sinker. This was Bayo completing the fastball triangle, getting that cutter. And then also a guy like Bayo, again, you kind of want to make sure you're pitching to your own platoon strengths. Bayo's best pitch was his changeup. He tried to throw the changeup against righties, but righty changeups aren't exactly the best thing in the world. When this cutter came in, he quit throwing that changeup to righties, and he especially kept throwing that changeup in the zone. So changeup is not an in-zone pitch. No off-speed pitches are really in-zone pitches, which is going to be funny to see how this fit works with someone like Kodai Senga. But this year, the Red Sox, you take all three fastballs together, four-seamers, sinkers, and cutters. They had the second highest rate of the combination of those three pitches in all of baseball. But that was specifically second highest for cutter, 10th fewest for four-seam fastball.
Okay. All right. I mean, yeah,
Some
you
stuff
mentioned Kodai there, and he's the one that I think about all the time because he could be a make or break guy for this team, kind of like he was in 2025, where if we get a good version of Kodai Senga, all of a sudden this pitching staff looks a hell of a lot better. We get the 2025 second half version of Kodai Senga. You're like, oh yeah, we have one major league pitcher on this roster right now.
And the key for Kodai, like we've said a lot, is finding something else that can beat hitters in the zone. Because as good as the Ghost Fork is, it's just not a zone pitch. It isn't. I think Kodai even got into more trouble this season when he tried to start making that an in-zone pitch because he had nothing else to put in the zone. And then all of a sudden he had nothing left. And then,
I mean, it's also kind of the Reed Garrett thing too, where it's like the splitter. A splitter's not a strike pitch either. That's a pitch that you get guys to chase. Reed Garrett started throwing that splitter in the zone, need to fill up the zone, and then started getting absolutely smacked.
Especially when teams are kind of a bit more aware of what you're trying to do to them. And then this offseason, I think specifically this World Series, the splitter has become like a bit of like people are talking about the splitter right now, like it's going to revolutionize baseball. But this Red Sox team, and again, splitters are very player-driven pitch. Not everyone can throw a splitter.
Yeah, only certain guys can.
And it's the thing, not a lot of guys even want to throw because it is at the end of the day, one of the most difficult pitches to control consistently. And even if you group the splitter with forkballs, with screwballs, with changeups, the Red Sox had the third lowest rate of any off-speed pitch this year of any team. So it does seem like this is going to be a more fastball-heavy team. And also, the Red Sox are middle in the road with breaking balls. I remember last year, the whole thing was like the Red Sox are going to breaking ball their way all the way to the top, and then that stopped working. Then they brought the fastballs back. But off-speed pitches are not known for being zone pitches. Fastballs are known for being zone pitches. I think that there's going to be a huge move by the Mets this year to throw more pitches in the strike zone, which I'm sure you guys are thrilled about.
Got to be pumped about it. You've listened to 20 minutes about the pitching coach. There it is. More fastballs in the zone seems to be the plan for the Mets this year, which should be really nice. I'm tired of seeing walks.
It's very tired. And then just to give one Red Sox story that maybe wasn't much of a success, Tanner Houck, who I've told you was one of my least favorite pitchers in all of baseball.
Yeah.
I didn't think this guy could ever succeed. But it's a first-round pick not that long ago, and right before the regime's changed. But he has a more similar Kodai approach where there's not a lot. I mean, Kodai has a wider arsenal, but there's not a lot of pitches. It's just sweeper, sinker, splitter. And hard to throw two of those in the strike zone. So then a guy like Tanner Houck really got into trouble because especially as a righty facing lefties, like here's a sinker middle for you guys, and if the splitter can't land, you're kind of dead. So again, talk about some guys who found success and one guy who did not.
I think that's pretty good. I think that's 20 dense minutes on what could be the new Mets pitching coach, Justin Willard. Going to be really fucked if they don't hire him.
Yeah, it's just a wasted episode. But a couple other funny things about Willard. Just did a scroll on his Twitter. He already followed me, which I thought was crazy. As I followed him. I followed the Mets potential pitching coach back, which is hilarious. And I love when like coaches like this just tweet the corniest shit in the world. He posted an image from October 22nd of last year. The secret, and this is an image. This isn't something he typed. This is like
Let me see.
It's like a Google image. I got the link for you here. But the secret is there is no secret. Consistency over intensity, progress over perfection, fundamentals over fads, over and over again. And on his Twitter and his Instagram, his bio is seek progress, not perfection.
Hey, if it works, it works. If it works, it works. That's all I care about. It's not my vibe, but hey, be a good pitching coach. I'm happy.
Yeah, that shit's funny. But I do hope he is the pitching coach. We've heard a lot of things from people around the game that this guy's great. I know the Red Sox really want to keep a guy like this in the building. I'm sure that they do, especially I don't know if Kyle Boddy winds up taking this job back, but it's nice to hearing him talk a lot and all the stuff we found about him. I'm over the moon excited and confident what he can be as a pitching coach.
So Mets up difference, 25 minutes on a possible pitching coach hire for the New York
Probable.
Mets. Guys, thank you so much for listening, for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to Mets'd Up over on YouTube. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download and subscribe. You can follow James on social media at
James Shiano, just like Justin Willard.
and I'm Giraffe Neck Mark with a C. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Go Mets.